judge and jury, please? You may be seated.
Have a seat, sir.
All right. You ready to go?
I am.
Okay. So before we took a break, we were talking about getting your kids on the school bus that morning, about 8:25, 8:35. So you got Gavin and Ella on the bus, and then you came back inside. What happened next?
I went upstairs into the bedroom.
What?
And I just held Maureen. I asked God why.
How long do you think you stayed in the bedroom with Maureen?
I don't know.
At any point that morning, did you leave the house again after putting Gavin and Ella on the school bus?
I did.
Where did you go?
I went to Home Depot.
Okay. Why did you go to Home Depot?
For the sole purpose of getting a box knife
And why did you want the box knife?
to try to kill myself.
You were going to try to kill yourself? So you went to Home Depot, you bought the box knife, and your plan was to kill yourself. Where did you go from Home Depot?
Back home.
You went back home? Okay. And did you indeed try to kill yourself when you got back home?
I did.
And where in the house did you do that?
Upstairs in the bedroom.
Upstairs in the bedroom? And so how did you try to kill yourself upstairs in the bedroom?
I cut both wrists vertically.
So after cutting both wrists, what did you do?
Laid down next to Maureen. I held her. I said, if this is the way we're going to go, then we're going to do it together.
Did you leave a note for anyone to find? At some point, though, you did wake up, right?
I did.
When you woke up, were you surprised?
I was.
And what did you do when you woke up?
I I realized what I'd done, but in trying to cut my wrist, I went into the bathroom and tried to attend to the wounds.
Bill, you take some very long pauses in your testimony. What's up with pauses?
This isn't easy.
This isn't easy.
It's this might be 2 years for some people, but it feels like it was yesterday for me.
So after getting up, you said attending to your wounds, did you decide to leave the house again?
Prior to that, I went back into the room and saw Maureen again and attempted to take my life again.
Okay. Attempted to take your life again, how?
I recut the areas.
Okay. But again, clearly that did not work. So then what?
I awoke. I, at that point, saw all the blood. Saw my wife. Was just feeling overwhelmed.
Okay.
Didn't really know what to do.
Okay.
Felt like it, I just couldn't think,
Okay.
do anything. I needed to get out of there.
Okay. And so did you in fact get out of there?
I did.
Did you bring anything with you?
I did.
What did you bring with you?
I brought the knife that I had cut myself with,
Okay. Anything else?
the sheet that Maureen hung herself with.
Why did you bring that?
It, when I took it off, I had just thrown it on the floor. It was more of just grabbing things.
Okay.
Um,
So did you put it into a bag?
I did.
What else did you put into that bag?
I had Maureen's cell phone and my phone.
Why did you bring Maureen's cell phone in addition to your own?
It, when I found Maureen, it was plugged in and left on the nightstand next to her.
Okay. But why did you bring it with you?
I don't know if I just thought maybe answers.
You thought maybe there would be answers on her phone?
Answers if somebody would call.
Okay.
Answers if I could find something on her phone that might give me we had talked about her getting some emails and calls in the past. That had flashed through my mind
Okay.
as to what was going on with that. I think just grabbing everything.
Okay. Did you bring anything else with you? You said you packed a bag with your phones, the sheet, the knife. Did you bring anything else with you?
I think I grabbed a pair of just pants that might have been next to a bag.
And so with this bag, you walked out of the house
I did.
and you got into one of the cars, is that right?
I did.
Which car did you decide to take?
I took the Murano.
And why take the Murano and not your pickup truck?
There was some financial problems with the truck in the sense that there may be a possibility of repossession. But the Murano was our family car.
Okay.
It reminded me of Maureen, everything about Maureen. It was just, it was a car that she used.
Okay.
So I knew it would have, all her little trinkets that she likes to have in her cars.
Okay. So when you grabbed your bag and you got into the Murano, did you know then where you were going to go?
No clue.
And so you just started driving?
I did.
So I want to hear about this drive. You said you got in the car, you didn't know where you were going yet, you just started driving. Describe your headspace for us. What was running through your mind?
So many questions. And no answers. Didn't really know what really at this point anybody would think.
You didn't know what anybody would think?
At this point as to what might have happened.
Okay. And what did you understand to have happened?
Exactly what I saw, that she had taken her life.
So as you started to drive, did you talk to anybody on this drive?
I don't recall it, but as testimony was brought, that there was a text
Okay.
about my middle name,
Okay.
and
But
it
on
is
this
confirmed
drive,
that it's,
Did you call 911 or the police?
had I known.
Did you try calling your mother or anybody in your family?
I had not.
Did you try calling anybody in Maureen's family to let them know what had happened?
I had not.
And why not?
I don't think I was even thinking clearly at that point.
Okay. So where did you wind up driving?
I wound up driving to Foxwoods.
And what's Foxwoods?
It's a casino.
Okay. When did you decide that that's where you were going to go?
When I was just driving, I leaving our house, both routes of either way I've taken to work, so it's just a common area, and I think eventually, when I got on Route 3 and finally got down, I wanted to get to somewhere that was safe, and also that was public, and that if I needed to be found, I knew I could be found.
So you said you wanted to get somewhere safe. What does that mean?
The concern I had initially when I found Maureen also was a text that Mr. Timbus had sent to my cell phone in regards to threatening me. I really didn't know what was going on or how to explain what was going on. And Foxwoods is a place that where Maureen and I would go, whether at anniversaries or occasional trips. And gambling was, it was an addiction for me, but it was a safe haven for me.
Okay. When you got to Foxwoods, did you in fact gamble?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay. And what kind of games did you play while you were there?
I think initially I started on the card tables upstairs as I had gone to the poker room, and to my recollection, the table wasn't, a seat wasn't available.
Okay. Now, you had been to Foxwoods before, you said.
I had,
Do you know about how many times you had been to Foxwoods over the years?
maybe, probably 8 to 10 times.
Okay. Now, Bill, we've heard that you frequented a number of gambling establishments here in New Hampshire.
Yes.
When you would go to, let's say, the poker room in Manchester or Chasers, would you commonly see patrons or employees there who you knew?
I would.
What about when you would go to Foxwoods? How large of a place is Foxwoods?
They actually boast themselves as the largest casino in the world.
Okay. And when you would go to Foxwoods, were you familiar with the clientele and the employees like you were familiar with the clientele and employees at places like Chasers?
No, but there was a couple workers at Chasers that actually were employees that happened to be employees at Foxwoods too.
Okay. So this particular time when you went to Foxwoods, did you see anybody who you knew?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. I want to shift gears for a moment, and then we will come back to Foxwoods. So you brought up Jamie Timbus. We heard testimony from Jamie Timbus, I believe yesterday. Did you ever ask Jamie Timbus to kill Maureen and make it look like a suicide?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever ask Jamie to help you find a hired killer?
Absolutely not.
Now, some of this may be information that the jurors have already heard, so we will keep it brief, but how did you know Jamie?
He was, well, every day it seemed to be different. He was the owner one day, his wife was the owner the next day, he was a manager, but he ran the poker room.
Okay, so you knew Jamie from gambling.
Yeah.
Did you ever spend time with Jamie outside of his establishment?
Very infrequently, but yeah,
And when you would go to his establishment, would you see him there?
yes, he was there on a regular basis.
Okay. And when he was there, was he ever sitting at the poker table with you?
Yes.
Okay. When you play poker at a table, do you ever talk about your personal life with the other people at the table?
I'm usually a private person, but, you know, when you get to know people, you know, you might share pictures of, like, your kids or grandkids, or, you know, so you might say, you know, what you did, or really intimate things? No, I wouldn't.
Did you ever complain about your marriage when you sat at the poker table?
No,
You never complained about your marriage at the
I
poker
did
table?
not.
Did you ever complain about Maureen while playing poker?
I wouldn't say complain about Maureen. I would say more of, they would more ask me if my wife knew I was here.
Okay.
And I would say she's a smart woman. I'm pretty sure she thinks that I am. But I would never complain about her.
Was it common for you to drink while playing poker?
I would have some drinks.
Now, the sort of language that you and others would use while at the poker table, is this the sort of language you would use, say, in a professional setting?
Probably not, but it's not really vulgar. I mean, I'm not really one with vulgarity, but I mean, there'd be some F words and,
Okay.
you know, but
And this was this language and topics of conversation that you would use, say, at a family gathering, at a holiday gathering?
probably not.
Okay. Do you ever borrow money from Jamie's club?
I have borrowed money.
And have you ever borrowed money from patrons of Jamie's club?
Yes.
So I want to return to Foxwoods. You arrived at Foxwoods on April 4th. Do you remember about what time you got there?
I got there approximately, I believe, a little after 5 o'clock.
A little after 5 p.m.
Correct.
on April 4th. And you said that you went upstairs, but there was no seats available.
Correct.
So you went to a different table and played. Did you eat or drink anything while you were there?
I know I might have had a drink, whether I ate or something. I probably did. I don't recall.
Did you spend the night there?
I I did not.
You did not? Okay. Now, at some point, you did wind up speaking with police. We heard from tribal police who arrived.
Correct.
When they arrived at Foxwoods, they pulled you over from the table. How did you feel?
There was a little confusion, but a little relief.
Why relief?
Because I had a pretty good idea of why they were there.
And why was that you thought they were there?
Because they probably wanted to talk to me about my wife being deceased.
Okay. Did you think that you were a suspect or a person of interest in her death?
Absolutely not.
Now, we heard from a state police officer who spoke with you at the hospital in
Correct.
Connecticut. You spoke with him for over an hour, is that right? And he testified that when he told you Maureen had died, that you didn't show much of a reaction. What was going through your mind when he told you that your wife had died?
A flashback of everything I saw.
Okay. And during that conversation, did you tell him everything that you saw?
I can't remember if I did or not.
At no point from the time that morning when you found Maureen to when tribal police arrived, at no point did you reach out to the police yourself. Why is that?
I think first it all started with protection of my kids. Then I see police as a means of a crime being done.
Okay.
And at no time did I feel a crime was done.
Okay. So had you thought that this was a crime, would you have called the police to report it as such?
Probably, yes, absolutely.
Now, at no point between the morning of April 4th when you found Maureen and later on at Foxwoods, did you call any of Maureen's family, any of your family, to tell someone what had happened? Why didn't you make any of those phone calls?
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time.
So in the day or so between the morning when you found Maureen and when you were taken to the hospital in Connecticut, you didn't call your mother, you didn't call Maureen's parents, you didn't call your siblings, you didn't call Maureen's siblings, you didn't call anybody to tell them what had happened. Why didn't you make those calls?
I was 100% in shock.
Okay. Here, one moment, please. I have nothing further for you, but the state may, correct?
You are right-handed, right?
I am, sir.
So according to you, Maureen was a suicidal drunk who neglected her kids, right?
That's not what I said, sir.
Wasn't that the portrait that you were trying to paint for these jurors before the lunch recess?
That's the portrait that you're trying to portray, sir.
That would be an inaccurate portrait of Maureen, wouldn't it?
That you're trying to portray? Yes, sir.
And she was a suicidal drunk who neglected her kids, right? That would be inaccurate, right, Mr. Argie?
That you're trying to portray? Yes, sir.
And that would be a despicable character attack on Maureen, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yes.
It would.
The truth is Maureen adored her kids, right?
Maureen was a good mother.
She was a great mother to her kids, right?
She was a great mother.
Well, except when she was passed out on the couch while you were giving the kids piggyback rides and reading to them, right?
That's what I stated, sir.
Who was giving your kids piggyback rides while you were blowing their college funds at the casino?
There was no blowing of college funds.
Who was reading to your kids when you were spending the mortgage payments at the poker room and at Chasers and at MGM in Massachusetts?
Repeat the question?
Yeah. Who was reading to your kids when you were spending the mortgage payments at the gambling table at Chasers and the poker room and MGM Casino? Who was reading to your kids then, Mr. Argie?
Mortgage payments were being made.
Maureen was a loving, attentive, and caring mother, right?
She was.
She took kids to events, right?
She did,
She provided for them as best as she could.
as best she could, correct?
As pretty much a single parent because you were out gambling the family's money away, right?
That's an inaccurate statement.
Maureen lived for her kids, didn't she, Mr. Argie?
I think she lived for her family.
You told these jurors that you found your wife and you laid with her and you were crying with her, right?
Correct.
Were you still crying when you used your dead wife's cell phone to send her a brother a text message pretending to be Maureen?
Sir, I had already tried to commit suicide. I thought that phone was mine and I was responding to my mother.
Except, Mr. Argie, this text message was at 9:52 a.m., well before you tried to take your own life.
No, that actually is accurate.
So the cell phone records are inaccurate, Mr. Argie. Is that what you're saying?
No, the cell phone records say 9:52. If you would like to put those back up, I'm sure that we can confirm that I reported back to my house well before 9:52.
Yes, you did, from Home Depot, right?
Correct.
Just about 10 minutes, right?
No, actually, it was a little more than that.
You didn't use that phone that you had access to call Maureen's brother, who truly loved her, to tell her that she was, to tell him that she was dead, did you?
Nope. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life.
You also didn't use that phone to contact any of the many other people who truly loved Maureen to tell them that she was dead, right?
I did not.
And you didn't use that phone to call 911, right?
What would 911 do, sir?
Were you still shedding tears when you used your dead wife's cell phone to buy yourself hash browns and coffee at the Dunkin' Donuts on the way to gamble?
I did not go to Dunkin' Donuts.
You didn't go to Dunkin' Donuts in Hudson.
I did not.
And you didn't use your dead wife's debit card at that Dunkin' Donuts in Hudson.
I did not.
So someone else must have taken Maureen's debit card and used it then.
Well, my personal knowledge in the discovery that you also have access to, she had her debit card missing the day before.
And that same mysterious person also used her debit card to buy a hotel room at the very casino where you were found.
Which I got from Maureen Wednesday morning.
That's a coincidence, huh? So we have another person who stole your wife's debit card, used it at the Hudson Dunkin' Donuts that's on the way to the casino, and also used it at the very casino where you were found. Is that what you're trying to sell to these jurors, Mr. Argie?
When was the debit card used at the casino?
Were you still fighting through tears, Mr. Argie, when you ditched your dead wife's cell phone on the way to Foxwoods to gamble more of your family's money?
I was.
Were you still crying when on the way to Foxwoods casinos to blow more of your family's finances, you texted a potential employer your middle initial?
I did do that, I said.
You certainly was thinking straight then, right?
I don't think it takes much mental capacity to put an A on a telephone.
How much mental capacity does it take to dial 911, Mr. Argie?
Again, the question is, what would 911 do?
And what would calls to Maureen's family do, right? They'll find out somehow, right? Do you have an answer for that, Mr.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Repeat the question?
Sure. What would calls to Maureen's family do? Do you have any idea? Do you think that they would have appreciated a call about their sister, their daughter? Do you think they might have?
They would have, yes, sir.
You know who you also didn't call, Mr. Argie? You didn't call your mother, right?
Correct.
You didn't call your mother to say, hey, don't bring the kids back to the house to make sure that your wife's children wouldn't see her bloating corpse in the bloody house that you left behind, right? Also didn't do that, Mr. Argie, did you?
I didn't.
You weren't crying when you complained to your friends and family members about how you believe Maureen didn't make enough money, right?
My personal knowledge of those conversations is not how that went.
And you weren't crying when you were complaining to your friends and family members about how you thought Maureen was holding you back, right?
Again, my personal knowledge, that conversation never happened.
And you weren't crying when you told your friends and family members that no way would you pay child support for your 2 kids, right?
I can confirm that conversation never happened.
But it was more than one conversation, Mr. Argie. If you recall, there are several people who testified to the juror about the conversation. But none of those conversations occurred. That's your testimony?
The testimony for them is that those conversations occurred. My testimony is that they didn't.
You weren't crying when you berated Maureen for several hours in front of your sister Karen, right?
That never occurred either.
And you weren't crying when you told your neighbor, Mr. Lang, that you would kill yourself in order to inflict pain on Maureen, right?
Actually, I think he said that I was distraught. So I
You
believe I
weren't
was crying.
right?
Huh?
His testimony was you were angry
He said distraught.
and in a dark place, right?
Did he say distraught too, sir?
And you weren't crying when you talked to your friend, your good friend, Dan LaRochelle, about killing your wife rather than paying child support, right?
That's inaccurate. I never had that conversation with him.
Never had that conversation. Why would Mr. LaRochelle lie about that?
I can tell you one thing, that he's off by the year. He's off by where it happened. And the conversation never occurred.
Why would Mr. LaRochelle lie about that?
Well, considering that I told him that he wasn't a friend anymore,
We know why you would lie to these jurors, right? Right?
I don't know.
You don't know. You're a smart guy, right, Mr. Argie? You're on trial for murder, right?
Well, you're the one that asked the question, sir.
Yeah. What possible motive would you have to lie to the jury?
I don't know. What
Does
motive is
anything
that?
comes to mind? To get away with murder? Would that be a possible motive why you would lie to these jurors?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am not lying to you.
But that conversation with Mr. La Rochelle never occurred, right?
That is correct.
And those conversations with the 3 witnesses who testified to these jurors, those conversations never occurred,
That
right?
is correct.
And that conversation with Mr. Timbus in which you solicited your wife's murder, right?
That is correct.
And Mr. Timbus is lying because
Because what?
exactly. Mr. Timbus is lying because
He's trying to get back at me, maybe?
trying to get back at you. When you went to Connecticut, your bank accounts were tapped out, right?
I believe so.
And you used your dead wife's debit card at that Dunkin' Donuts, didn't you?
I've already testified that I did not go to Dunkin' Donuts.
But in any event, your bank accounts were tapped out, huh?
Correct.
And we know that you took your dead wife's car, right?
The family car, correct?
Yeah, and you took your dead wife's cell phone, right?
Correct.
And you claim we have this mysterious thief out there who took your dead wife's debit card and used it at the Dunkin' Donuts in Hudson and also used it at the Foxwoods Casino Hotel, right?
There is no testimony or evidence that I used it at the Foxwoods
But you
Hotel.
took your dead wife's car and cell phone, right?
Correct. I
You
testified.
were tapped out of funds, right? You saw the balance, $189 in the negative, right?
Of the bank accounts, I had cash on me.
So you claim that your wife's body was wedged in between the bed and the nightstand when you found her corpse, right?
Correct.
Now, you understand as a smart guy that a necessary component of hanging is that the body needs to be suspended. Right?
Correct.
But according to your account, the body was wedged in between the bed and the nightstand, not suspended.
The wedge is part of the suspension.
If somebody's wedged in, they're not suspended by the ligature, right? Which is it? Was she wedged or was she suspended?
No, she was wedged. Do you
So-
understand what wedge means, sir?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure it out. I think the jurors are too.
Okay. Would you like me to explain?
Please, I think we all do.
Okay. So as I testified that she was wedged on her right side. So what was holding her up was her left butt cheek was hitting the nightstand and the rest of her body was wedged in between.
So she wasn't held up by the ligature.
She was held up by the ligature, but the full weight was not, she was not down on the ground.
And we also have that mysterious bruise on her too. That must have been when she wedged herself in between the nightstand while she was trying to hang herself.
Objection. Objection. Mr. Argie is not testifying to as a medical expert. He doesn't need to comment on what injuries were left behind, where they may have came from.
He doesn't know, he doesn't know.
I'll allow it.
Repeat the question?
We're trying to figure out how she got that contusion to her neck.
On the right side?
Yeah.
So if somebody has a sheet around their neck and the weight is on the right side, do you understand the concept of a noose and the tightening?
If only we had that sheet so you could demonstrate that, huh? Where is that sheet?
At this time, I don't know, sir.
Where's your phone? Where's the phone that you had that had this photograph of the 2 open wine bottles that showed that Maureen was a drunk?
That phone is, as far as I know, up in Maine.
And where is Maureen's cell phone?
Unfortunately, the phone went dead, and when driving, I got frustrated that I would not continue to have the phone, and I threw it out on 395.
Phone went dead and you threw it out, right? Tossed it away. Abandoned it. Right?
Correct.
Just like you abandoned your dead wife. Right?
I did not abandon my dead
You
wife.
did not abandon your dead wife. Mr. Argie, are you an addict?
I am.
You would spend hours of time at casinos, right?
I would.
You spent and lost hundreds and thousands of dollars at a time, right?
That's inaccurate.
You spent and lost money that you didn't have, right?
Can you explain that question?
You spent and lost money that you didn't have.
If you're talking about that I borrowed money, I borrowed money.
You gambled away money that could have been used for your family, right?
I did.
For the mortgage to keep a roof over their heads, right?
I did.
For the kids' summer camp, right?
I did.
While you were gambling and trying to hang on to that expensive, nice new truck of yours, Maureen was borrowing money from family members for the kids' summer camp, right?
I didn't know about that.
Well, that was when she wasn't passed out on the couch, not watching the kids.
Is that a question or a rhetorical
Is that a
statement?
despicable characterization of your wife by me?
I didn't know if that was a question or a rhetorical statement.
Tell me, Mr. Argie, were you and are you a friendly and polite actor?
I don't really know how to answer that question.
Well, you neglected your family, right?
I think in order to be an addict, I think that probably might come with the territory.
You mistreated your wife, right?
I didn't mistreat my wife.
You would say hateful things towards her, right?
I disagree with that.
You didn't say anything hateful towards your wife at all, right?
I don't think that I was a saint in being an addict, but I don't think I said hateful things towards her.
You would complain about your wife, right? To others.
Well, I already answered that question and said that's inaccurate.
And again, I think you looked at the jurors and told them, looking right at them, I didn't kill my wife. Why don't you look right at them again and tell them that you never said anything bad about your wife to others. So they know that they can trust you, Mr. Argie. Why don't you look at them?
I would never say anything bad about my wife.
And you would never say any hateful things about your wife, Mr. Argie, right? Let them know that it's the truth.
I would say never anything hateful about my wife.
And you never said anything threatening towards your wife, right?
I never said anything threatening towards my wife.
So when you went went to the Home Depot and bought utility knives, Maureen was already dead, right?
Correct.
And then you took her car, right?
Our car.
And you took her car because you thought the truck could be tracked for repossession, right?
Not quite sure if it could be tracked, but I know that there was a possibility that it might be up for repossession.
And you were clear-headed enough to think that through, right?
Don't think that was a decision that was made right then and there.
When we talked about when you left, you had both your phone and your wife's cell phone, right?
Correct.
We talked about those numerous calls that you never made, right?
What numerous calls I never made.
To 911,
Correct.
Maureen's friends and family,
Correct.
your own family, right?
Correct.
Well, we heard you call with your friend Ray Karen, right?
Which call are you referring to?
The call that we heard between you and Mr. Karan, or Karen.
Are you discussing the 6th?
Yeah.
Correct.
You made sure that your mom was notified of your whereabouts, right?
Correct.
Again, you didn't contact any of Maureen's family and friends or anyone to let them know where she was, right?
Correct.
And getting back to your words to your friend Ray, it was time for you to be selfish, right?
Well, at that point, like he said, he was a best friend. And the fact that he said, I know I would never hurt her on purpose. I knew he was being accusatory.
Your words to your friend, now time for me to be selfish, right?
Again, I knew he was being accusatory. Also, I knew that it was probably at that point being recorded, even though I told the police that I invoked my Miranda rights to not speak with them.
But there was no reason for you to be worried, right? You didn't do anything, right?
I did not,
That's what you
but-
told these jurors.
That's correct, but again, here I am being accused of something I didn't do.
Just like you were accused, or many people testified about the statements you made about not wanting to pay child support, right?
I believe one person said that, and I said that's an inaccurate.
Well, I believe the jurors actually heard that from your sister Karen, right?
I believe it was Karen.
And also your sister Kelly, right?
I can't recall Kelly saying that. If she did, then
And your friend TJ.
I don't recall TJ saying it either.
Well, you know that you heard it from Dan LaRochelle because that's when you threatened to kill Maureen.
Well,
If she
I would have no
took custody of
problems.
the kids, right?
I have no problem paying just child support. As I testified, I had a discussion with Maureen that might get more money.
Let's discuss that conversation that you say you had with Maureen. Those last angry words you claim that you voiced to your wife. You claim that you told Maureen you would fight for custody of the kids and division of assets, right?
Correct.
And apparently Maureen was so devastated and demoralized by your proclamations that it drove her to take her own life, right?
I can't speak for her mindset at that point.
You were strong in this conversation. Maureen apparently weak and emotionally fragile,
I definitely wasn't strong.
You talked about Maureen being quiet, as did several other witnesses, right?
Correct.
Are you trying to equate Maureen's quietness with mental instability or emotional fragility?
I think those two statements are extreme.
That would be more character assassination of your wife, wouldn't it?
Excuse me?
That would be more character assassination of your wife, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be pretty horrible.
Getting back to those last words you said, you spoke to Maureen, that you'd fight for custody of your kids, right?
Correct.
And at the time, you were an out-of-work, bankrupt, gambling addict who was about to be banished to your mom's vacation home, right?
Well, I wasn't out of work. I wasn't bankrupt. And I was not going to be banished to the vacation home.
Well, we heard the calls you made to Ford Motor Credit when you talked about having a job 2 days in the last month. What do you characterize that as?
That was, I worked as needed. It's called or per diem. I had taken that on as a choice of mine, roughly about October, November of 2018. That was roughly also the time that Maureen and I were going into therapy and doing therapy. One of the things that she did talk about was obviously the gambling and the job. So I told her I would start looking for a full-time job.
And you say that you threatened Maureen that you'd fight for custody. Just a week prior, you had openly talked about killing yourself, right?
Correct.
And you think that this made you a prime candidate to be custodial parent for your 2 young kids?
I think going over to my neighbor Dave's house was, as he said, venting. Cried for help.
Well, you threatened Maureen that you tell the judge that she's a drunk, right?
I didn't say that she was a drunk. I just brought those pictures to her and questioned her.
But we know that you threatened to kill yourself just that week before. And the judge in custody would have been able to know that as well, right?
I don't know.
But again, your threats to Maureen that you said that you made with custody scared poor Maureen to commit suicide, right?
What I've testified is that I had that conversation and the next morning.
Your own doting mother told you days before Maureen's death that you were unfit to care for your own kids, right?
That was her opinion.
That was a text message we saw, right?
Correct.
And that upset you, your mother telling you that, right?
I don't think I really had an opinion either way.
And it also upset you that your mother was providing a home for Maureen and the kids, right?
Yeah, I think I would agree to that.
You felt betrayed by your family.
Correct.
Also, with respect to this alleged conversation with Maureen before she apparently took her own life, you talked about fighting for division of assets, right?
Correct.
Again, you were at least planning to file for bankruptcy, right?
I had discussed with a lawyer, yes.
Division of assets, we talking 50-50?
The lawyer, yes.
What's half of negative $189, which is what you had in your bank accounts at the time?
That's not what was going to be split.
What is half of the massage and food bill that you skipped out of from the poker room and whatever outstanding gambling debts you had around town?
Again, that's not half of what was going to be split.
What is half of that expensive new truck that you were leasing that you couldn't pay for and was about to be repossessed?
I'll tell you that that truck I could care less about.
Except we have the phone call that you made to Ford Credit 3 times, right?
Well, at the same time, when you have a bill, you try to pay it.
The biggest asset you had was that life insurance policy on Maureen's life, right?
It's not an asset.
And again, how much was that for, Mr. Argie?
400,000.
400,000. And you, according to your friends and family who testified, who knew your best, you were all about the money, right?
That was their perception of me.
But again, these were your family members, right? Yeah?
Yes.
And your closest friends, before you turned your back on them, right?
Yeah, they always perceived me as about all the money, about the money. I think about the money, let me try to explain that. I'm in a lucrative field. If I'm going to work at an urgent care center for 36 hours a week at one center, and they're going to pay me $150,000 a year, and another one is going to pay me $180,000, well, I'm going to go work for the $180,000 one. That's not about being about all the money. That's just being a smart person. You're doing the same work, might as well get paid a little more money.
All that money that you were making, that was in April of 2019?
Not quite understanding the question.
Yeah. Well, we saw your bank accounts. Remember, I had them on the screen, and we went over month by month for January, February, March.
Yep,
And we had, for March, you had a negative balance on your free accounts of $189, right?
I have two accounts.
You had 3. You showed-
Well, the third one is mine and Maureen's, as you didn't point out. So there's two accounts.
Okay, so we had 3 accounts. I think one of them had $1,
Yep.
right? And the other one had 99 cents,
Correct.
right? And the other one had negative $191. So which two were you flowing in cash with? You had the $1 and the 99-cent one?
No, I had the negative 199, which, as you heard on the Ford credit call, I was continuing to get late fees because they were taking money from the wrong account. I had talked to a lawyer about that. And the other one was a play account for my poker. So the fact that I had $1 in it, that probably was a good thing, seeing that I'm an addict.
So again, let's go over statements that you claim that you did make to friends and family that the jurors heard over the past week. Okay?
Yes.
You repeatedly talked to friends and family about how you believe Maureen didn't make enough money to your satisfaction. Did those conversations occur or not occur, Mr. Argie?
My conversations in regards to that was never about money. I would always have conversations with Maureen, whether she worked or not, that was up to her. Once my career was set, I actually made enough so she could stay home if she so desired. My concern was that she did love what she did. She was very good at what she did. I'm very thankful for her employer because it did allow the flexibility for her to go in late to allow me to work my 12 to 13-hour shifts. She was a social worker in the state of Massachusetts under a loophole. However, she could not be a social worker outside the state of Massachusetts. And her goal was to try to work in New Hampshire. So my concern was always, when I encouraged her, when I went to PA school, she had just finished her undergrad. I encouraged her to go back for her master's. She did. And luckily, she was able to stay on with her employer and get a job. However, I constantly asked her, could we ever move out of the area and her be able to have steady employment? That was my concern. It was never really about the money. I would talk about money that I was making, and was very happy with that, as I was doing very well with supporting my family until I became an addict.
Are you done, Mr. Argie?
I am.
And it's your testimony that you never told any of your family members or friends, and specifically those who testified this past week, that you never or didn't want to pay child support.
That is my testimony.
And the statements that the jurors heard from Dan LaRochelle, it's your testimony that you never made those statements
About child support?
about killing your wife for child support.
I never told Darren LaRochelle that I would kill my wife.
And Dan LaRochelle would lie about that because,
I'll tell you what I did tell him.
my question is, Dan LaRochelle would lie about that because,
I'm not concerned. I don't know. I will tell you that he is lying.
and Jamie Timbus is also lying about the solicitation at the restaurant that he showed the jurors text messages regarding that meeting.
Correct.
Which reminds me, you remember your lawyers were cross-examining Mr. Timbus, right?
Correct.
And asked if he had documentation for that meeting, right?
Correct.
Suggesting that if he didn't have documentation, he must be lying, right?
Correct.
And what documentation do you have for any of this story that you told the jurors?
Well, to my personal knowledge, reviewing the discovery, it took him 4 interviews to finally figure it out, that it was on February 13th.
Well, you're actually wrong about that, but let's stick to the question that I asked. You can try to do that. What documentation do you have in support of the story that you've given the jurors this afternoon?
I don't.
And actually, Mr. Timbus did have documentation in terms of the text messages. Right?
Because I texted him, yes.
One moment. Further questions?
Any retract? Okay. Mr. Argie, you can step down and,
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
anything further from the defense?
No, that's a number of
Okay. Can I see counsel? So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are at a point in this trial where the state, I'm sorry, I apologize, Attorney Hinckley and Chernisky, does the state intend to present any further evidence?
No, thank you, Judge.
Okay. So the state and the defense have both rested their cases. This is the time in a case where we then move next to closing arguments and the further instructions from the court. Because of the later hour in today's date, it's not, I could have it start, but we wouldn't get through both, and I would rather have them, counsel be able to provide their closing arguments at the same time. And so I'm going to stop the trial today, and we'll resume at 9 o'clock on Monday. So the trial is not over. We are all in the same exact position we've been in every day where we've ended. I want you to continue to keep an open mind, not talk about the case with anyone, and let me know if anything comes up. First thing Monday morning at 9, you will hear closing arguments from counsel. You will hear further instructions from the court. At that point, I will select 6 jurors who will become the alternates in this case, and as well, by random lot, the foreperson. And so any one of you could be the alternate, any one of you could be the foreperson. Obviously, because we don't know who those individuals are, there's no way any deliberations can start until we get to that point of the trial. So please keep in mind the instructions I've provided to you so far, and have a nice weekend, and we will start up at 9 on Monday. You'll go to the same location that you went to every other day. We have made arrangements as to where deliberations will occur and where the alternates will occur, will be held. So all of that will be provided to you at that point, in the trial when we get to the conclusion of the trial. But still report to the same location in the building that you've been reporting every day. So unless there's something further from counsel, we all set? Okay. I'll see you all back here on Monday. Thank you.
All right.
Yes. I just have one final question. As a result of the testimony that has occurred today, is there any change in jury instruction requests?
Not from the state, Judge.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, if counsel could spend a minute with our court reporter and ensure that all the exhibits that are full exhibits are agreed to, and all the exhibits that are only for ID are as well agreed to, so that there won't be any delay in providing them to the jury after closing and instructions. Okay?
We did that, Judge, and we also notified her that our laptop has all the digital exhibits on that. Once the final arguments are done and the jurors begin deliberation, we'll make sure that, like, our PowerPoints are put in the trash and the trash is emptied and the laptop can go into the jury room. There are a couple of software programs that they might need assistance in.
Okay.
You could always let us know.
Okay. Thank you. Anything? Hold. Oh, of course. Okay. Okay, thank you. We have another 100 some odd jurors coming into the building Monday morning to pick around 7 juries for regular jury service. We're going to instruct these jurors to cut the line to get into the building because we're expecting that there might be a long line. I'd say the same thing to counsel as well.
Sorry, I was.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We have 150-ish, 100 to 150 potential jurors coming in for regular jury selection.
Okay.
So we are going to notify our jurors to skip the line when they get to the door to, if they run into difficulty being able to get into the building.
You get to do the same thing?
You get to do the same thing, okay? Okay. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, and we, as I said, up at the bench, we have arrangements in mind as to where we'll be able to move people in order to have an appropriate location for the jury to deliberate with 6 feet of distance between them. Okay, thank you, everyone. And Marianne, I have this. Thank you, that just goes back to council.
You don't want this for a
Is that the council?